Welcome back to hour number 3 of the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. We've been doing a little mini session here the last couple of days, talking the state issues with some of the candidates who are running. A week from yesterday, which makes it May 20th, you're going to be going to the polls, and you better get out there, okay? If you're registered Republican or Democrat, get out there and vote. Ernie Merisotis and Kristin Phillips-Hill are both running for the Republican nomination for the 93rd legislative seat here in Pennsylvania, held at present by Ron Miller, but he will be heading on out. And one of these two, or somebody else who is yet unnamed out there, not running for Democrats, might be getting there to challenge you. Good morning to Kristin Phillips-Hill, and good morning to Ernie Merisotis. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gary.
Great to have you both in. Let's get right to it today. I was reading a couple things the other day about career politicians, okay? And neither of you is a career politician right now. I think, Kristin, you've been volunteering most of your life. Ernie, you've been in business. You've run for this office a couple times. But, tell me about what's wrong with career politicians right now. I'll start out this morning with Kristin.
Thank you, Gary. I think that the problem with career politicians is that they lose sight of why they ran and why they sought to serve in the first place. I think that anyone who stays more than 10 years loses that passion, that enthusiasm, that drive. And I think ultimately our founding fathers did not envision that people would be a career politician. They imagined we would serve and then go back to our regular life.
Ernie, how about you? Career politicians?
When I look at the problems that Pennsylvania is facing, I see that, we look at the Iron Triangle in Harrisburg, and part of that is the career politicians. When they're in there and when they voted this $50 billion pension crisis as a result of the 2001 vote by the legislators, which voted to raise their pension by 50%. I believe that, there are groups out there that want to get rid of the career politicians and want to get citizens in there. Our founding fathers did not intend the type of system that we have now, where it's, we're one of only 4 states with a full-time legislature. Texas, which is much larger, much more prosperous, gets by with a part-time legislature that meets every other year to vote for their budget. They have a 2-year budget. And I think that if we get people in there that come from the real world and aren't concerned with padding their pockets with the people's money, I think we'll have a much better atmosphere instead of the way things are in Pennsylvania.
Here's a problem that both of you potentially face. I was at a dinner one night, and I had a friend who had been elected as a state legislator. And he came up to me and said, "Can I see you for a second?" I said, "Sure." And he and I had lunch together a few times before he became that state legislator. And he said, "It's a lot worse there than I thought it was." He said, "It's really bad." He said, and I don't think anybody goes to be a state legislator with any kind of evil intent in mind. I think everybody goes there with the idea of changing, and both of you are here trying to serve. But he said, "I'm being asked to do a lot of things that I really don't want to do. What should I do?" I said, "Come back with your honor." I said, "Come back with your honor. Don't walk across the bridge into Caucuston and burn it behind you, as so many do." So I'd ask the two of you this morning, you can, and have whatever way you want to explain it, how are you going to stay away from crossing that bridge into Caucuston and playing in the game that you eventually get drawn into up there? Kristin, I'll start with you.
Well, look, when I got elected in 2011 to the school board, there were a lot of people that thought the status quo would be maintained. I don't believe in maintaining the status quo if the status quo isn't working. We had change in leadership. We have made significant change in the school district for the betterment of our community. The other thing is that I'm already doing this in my campaign. What was really evident to me is that the people in York County are independent-minded people, and one of the things that frustrated them beyond measure in this last special election was that the Republican Party attempted to control this election and attempted to tell York County voters who should be their next representative. I have unequivocally told the Republican Party in Harrisburg, I will run my campaign here on the ground in York County, and I have done that. I've raised my money here in York County. I am running my own campaign. They are not, the Harrisburg Republican Party is not calling the shots. I am. And so it starts with me right here today. And I'll take that same ethic to Harrisburg with me.
I've listened to both of you, and Ernie, as I said, good people trying to go to Harrisburg. Would you two be among those people? But how do you stay off that bridge to caucusdom and you never get a chance to go back over the moat?
Well, I think you're going to have a persistence of character about who you are really as a person. And I think I bring a lot of experience in the real world. I was a soldier. I was an Army officer. I was a small business owner for about 10 years. I've held a number of positions. I was in real estate, licensed in insurance, and a number of things. And I've run for this office twice before, and my position has not changed. 2 years ago, I was attacked by the Republican machine that went against Scott Wagner. They went against me 2 years ago. I was outspent 6-1, and I ran against Ron Miller. Still managed to get 42% of the vote. And, my position hasn't changed. I've seen what the career politicians have done when they attacked me. It's the same career politicians that attacked Scott Wagner. And you know what? Scott won, and Scott proved that your vote does count. And, my opponent is, after Ron Miller lost, he did say that he endorsed and supported my candidate, my opponent, Ms. Candacy.
Okay. Term limits. Term limits used to be when we went out and elected people. Term limits somehow have been stolen by somebody out there, or the idea of that has been stolen, at least by maybe people not paying attention to how they're voting or whatever it might be. You both have had remarks on term limits. You both appear to be in favor of term limits, although I think, Kristin, you have a specific number. Ernie, at the time that I saw this, you didn't have a specific number. I wanted to get your idea about term limits. I'm going to start with Ernie this time. Ernie, term limits, where we stand with that? I mean, I'd like to get back to the idea of let's vote, and that's the best term limit that we have, but that doesn't seem to be working too well right now, especially when you have incumbents.
I just had a conversation 2 days ago when I was knocking on doors, and the gentleman says, you know what, I'm not in favor of term limits, so I saw his opinion, and he stated, you know what, look, and I agreed with him on this point, is that the voters have a choice, and the ultimate term limit is the voters deciding who they want. Now, the problem with that is that when these career politicians get into office, they're able to do all these mailings, and they can send out at taxpayer expense a ton of mailings. And then we have other organizations, such as government-funded unions. For instance, the teachers union, they spend about 12% of their take in union dues, which incidentally are collected at taxpayers' expense. My opponent voted 2 years ago. She voted with the teacher's contract to have the taxpayers of the Dallastown Area School District collect union dues. And I think that that's wrong because they're going to fund the kind of people that they want.
Kristin, you've been in favor. I think I saw 5 2-year terms is what you're in favor of. Why do we need this whole idea of limiting people to a certain number of terms? What's important?
I think it comes back to ethics. I think that if you're in the institution too long, the institution can corrupt you. You need to keep your ability to remain above the fray. And ultimately, every 2 years, the people will go to the ballot and they have the ultimate term limit, which is they can vote you out. I would like to remain effective and efficient and vibrant and willing to get in there and do what needs to be done for the people. My opponent referenced union dues in a teacher's contract. I think it would be interesting to note that that provision was put into the contract prior to my serving on the school board. We did, in fact, negotiate a contract. That provision could not be negotiated out, although I attempted to do so. What was significant about that contract was we received a pay freeze from our teachers, both vertical and horizontal, and it saved in 1 year $2.2 million for the taxpayers of the Dallastown School District. So when you negotiate a contract, you can't get everything that you want. I wish that you could. I think significant salary concessions and significant health care concessions at that point were our top priority. Certainly, if we go back in and negotiate another contract, it's still on the list of things I'd like to see addressed.
I was a former head of a teachers union when I was teaching.
Really?
And I had the fun of having to negotiate a teacher's contract and represent teachers and be advocates for teachers and so forth. I took it very seriously. I also remember not liking the fact that my local union also had to be attached to PSEA and NAA, and I noticed that a lot of the things that they stood for many times, some of which were good, and I would never badmouth it because I thought they protected teachers, and yet at the same time, they get into politics, and the politics I get into didn't necessarily mix with my own. I guess my question here is paycheck protection is another part of this whole thing. How do the two of you feel about paycheck protection? Kristin, I'll start with you on this one.
Well, I will tell you that I would like to see paycheck protection eliminated. As a representative, I believe that I would have the ability to make that happen. Mm-hmm. I agree. You know, teachers who are part of the union don't necessarily always agree with the politics of the union in Harrisburg, and so we should give them the ability to have their views represented as they see fit. So I fully would support that as a legislator.
Ernie, your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, our governor, before he was governor, he was attorney general, and he put politicians in prison for using taxpayer funds as part of their own political campaign. Mm-hmm. I see no difference when school districts are forced to collect union dues. I think it is immoral, and I think it is unethical that the taxpayers are collecting union dues. Now, if a teacher wants to belong to a union, fine. But the fact that the school district, the taxpayers of the school district, are being forced to collect union dues, I believe is immoral and unethical. When my opponent did vote for that contract, that was basically the teacher's contract. It was a 2 years extension, and as you know, basically 70% of the school budget is the teacher's contract. That was put on as a last-minute starter. In other words, there was no public notice about the specifics of the contract. I could go into details, but basically it was put on as a last minute, voted on that night. If they had held the vote for 3 more hours, we could have called it the midnight pay raise.
I'll take announcer's prerogative here because I always look at faces and I can say, I got a little bit more on this. So, Kristin, go ahead.
My goodness, how anyone could call it that is it's outrageous. We saved taxpayers in salaries alone $2.2 million in 1 year. And you, having been an educator, mm-hmm. understanding contracts, will know that pay freeze not only saved money in that first year, that pay freeze is providing financial benefit to our taxpayers every year until that teacher retires because of the nature of compounding. It was a business decision. Let's just put it right out there. That's what it was. We attempt to run our school district as a business. It was a business decision. We were able to take advantage of the positive climate that a personnel decision created, and it saved our district millions of dollars. And in light of the crisis with pensions, the inequities in the school funding formula, the burden of unfunded mandates, and what prevailing wage rates do to school districts, we have to find those savings wherever we can find them.
We're going to have to break at this point. We're going to come right back. I want to ask you both when we come back from the break, how do we make education better? Well, let's just segue right into that in the state of Pennsylvania. How do we make sure that we're getting teachers to be better? How do we get better learning? What responsibility does the state have? And what would you do to bring all that together to make education better in the state of Pennsylvania? We're talking about the two who are fighting for the job here, Kristin Phillips-Hill and Ernie Merisotis for the 93rd Legislative District. They'll be on the ballot next Tuesday. And, of course, I don't think there's any Democratic candidate on the ballot as of yet. So the two of you are kind of it so far until we'll see if anybody comes up in the general election. They're talking about the issues. We are, too. Right here on the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. Back right after this. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA, where we are talking the issues, the state issues that are important to you. And We've got Kristin Phillips-Hill and, of course, Ernie Merisotis in here from the 93rd. They're running for the 93rd Legislative District. We're talking about education here. And I want to come back we'll start with Kristin on this one. How do we make education better in the state from several different viewpoints here, Kristin, if we can meld them all together? Helping make it better for teachers, helping make it better for students, helping to maybe get some formulas changed, whatever we need to do. It all kind of meshes together with each piece into one big quilt. What do we do?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to empower local school districts to make decisions with regard to curriculum and instruction. I believe that education needs to come from the bottom up, not the top down. It needs to, our education standards must come from our teachers, our parents, our community. I think that would be a good start. I honestly think that one of the things I would really like to see happen is to have a special session of the legislature called on pension reform. So much of what we need to do revolves around financing. The acting Secretary of Education said, if it wasn't for the pension issue, these are all these great things that we could do for education, and we can't do them because we are so strapped by the pension issue. We hear so much talk. We need to fix it. We need to fix it. The governor has said, we need to fix it. Where's the action? In the meantime, as a school board director, I'm looking at a $1.3 million increase between this academic year and next academic year, and I have to figure out what I can cut to make up that difference. So let's take it out of the regular operations of the legislature. Let's get inside Act 120 and let's figure out where we can make those changes so that we will have the funding necessary to really do what we do best, provide quality education at a local level for our students.
Ernie, how do you make education better from the teacher's perspective, from the kid's perspective, from maybe taking the old 1991 formula and change it, or whatever we need to do? How do you see that as a whole great big picture?
I would say that the first thing I would do is I would eliminate the Common Core standard. They've changed the name, but basically we still have it. And that is where we have outside forces that are basically dictating what the education program is going to be. Common Core, whether you call it Pennsylvania Core or whatnot, I think it's kind of like Obamacare for schools. It's going to do that much damage. I believe we should have school choice. I believe that parents ultimately should decide where to send their children. And that the parents are the best to decide, not government. And thirdly, I would say that House Bill 76, which would eliminate property taxes, it would still provide school funding dollar for dollar to the school districts. But House Bill 76, which is a bill I support, would eliminate the biggest school tax we got, and it's pushing over 10,000 people a year out of their houses. And I think that if we get House Bill 76, it's looking like, even though our legislatures didn't bring it up for a vote in the Senate with Scott Wagner in there, it looks like the Senate Bill 76, which is the mirror bill, could actually go forward.
We've got 30 seconds left for each of you before we go to a break here. Common Core. Like it, dislike it, very quickly. Why? Kristin?
I dislike it. I don't think the federal government should be dictating education standards to local school districts.
And I don't believe they get that power by Amendment number 10, if memory serves, that silly little Constitution thing. Ernie, your thoughts?
Again, it's about control. It is the government controlling things. It's education without representation. It'll give the local school districts will have absolutely no choice in the books that they use, the program. It's this or nothing, and I think that's an absolute disaster.
Do each of you see that as any kind of indoctrination at all?
Well, absolutely. It's what the federal government wants our children to learn. We've worked very hard to make sure that we view it as a baseline in our school district, and we go above and beyond it. But, we think that our curriculum should reflect the values of our community.
How about you, Ernie?
I mean, when you look at where it's coming from, it actually has bypassed the legislative process. It started with Bill and Melinda Gates and their very liberal ideas, and it's been basically forced down upon us. And we have a governor that hasn't decided to stand up to the Common Core, and now they're just calling it something else. It's going to basically, there's information that's being collected on your child that you have no control over, and it's, you don't get a vote. You don't get a say. It's just, this is the way it is, and that's absolutely wrong.
So fair to say both of you are more in favor of local control than you are in any kind of federal control and standards. When we come back, got a big argument going on in this country right now, particularly for your party that you both espouse, establishment and regular folk kind of Republicans, okay? Let's talk a little bit about where Republicans are doing the right thing, where they've gone astray when we come back, and then we'll lead into some other issues, not the least of which will be property taxes and pensions. Always fun little light subjects to talk about, and we'll do it here on the Gary Sutton Show. We've got Kristin Phillips-Hill and Ernie Merisotis, who are running for the Republican nomination. I'll spit that out, for the 93rd legislative seat, and we'll be right back with them here on the Gary Sutton Show on News Radio 910 WSBA. It's 31 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. We're just talking about contracts. Kristin Phillips-Hill here with us, and Ernie Merisotis running for the contract of the 93rd legislative district, a contract with the people where they have to elect you for a 2-year term. And we were talking about my job, and I said my job's a 1-day contract. And depending if I say the wrong thing, about a 1-minute contract. But we were talking about, maybe the two of them would be good on that Ernie and Karen show, or Karen and Ernie show, if I get junked here. Who knows? Anyway, I want to get back and get serious here. We've heard a lot in this country about establishment and regular folk type Republicans, Tea Party Republicans, if you'd like. And I know you both have maybe thoughts on this. One of the problems that a lot of people are having right now, and I just saw a study yesterday that said many, many people are turned off by voting. They're just not enthused to go vote, even in the primaries or even in this general election coming up this midterm year. So how do we get people rejuvenated who think that no matter who they vote for right now, the same thing's going to happen? Ernie?
Well, I think the special election proves that your vote does count. It was absolutely stunning, made the national news. And I think the real thing is to get real conservatives into office. Because when people see that the Republican gets in there and then there's a Democrat and there's no difference, then they have a point. And I think the real way to do it is by finding out who you're voting for, seeing where they stand on the issues, and taking the time. Most people take more time to find out about their football team than to find out who they're voting for, and yet that has a direct impact on what your taxes are going to be, how much freedom we continue to lose. That shouldn't be the way it is, but by getting involved in the political process.
Kristin, how do we get people a little bit more enthused?
I think you're absolutely right. I think people are disenfranchised. I think that people feel like government isn't working for them. It's not efficient. It's not effective. And I think that they feel that it's so hard to have their voice heard. And, thinking about how are we going to solve so many of these problems, I came across Governor Brownback out in Kansas, who I respect very much, said, as Republicans, we need to make government more efficient, more effective, and we need to take recommendations from the public. Let's not make it difficult for the public to make government work for them. So he established an office of the repealer. And basically what that does is, when we look at Washington and it's so out of control, he is seeking to make Kansas under control. And basically, it's about reducing the size of government. It's about cutting government waste. It's about increasing legislative and gubernatorial transparency and putting money back into the residents' pockets. And he's doing that. In 2011, they repealed fixed 51 statutes or regulations that weren't working for the people. It's in the office of the governor. In Tennessee, they're doing the same thing. It's housed in the legislature, put in place for 4 years, and people can directly contact them. You find that this regulation's not working for you, you go in, you click on a link, you tell them what's going on, and they investigate it. And they've made, I believe they've repealed 51 regulations or laws in Kansas alone in 1 year. Those are the kinds of reforms that people want to see. We need to do our job, and that's in making government efficient, effective, and working for the people. And I think that will restore their trust.
Ernie, our founding fathers were pretty smart. They set up not a pure democracy, as we had in the ancient Greece. They set up a representative democracy they called a republic. And we stand there every day when we pledge allegiance. We say, "To the republic for which it stands." My problem is right now that we were supposed to be the government having representatives represent us, and yet we seem like we've given the representatives the power, and we call them the government, and they represent a certain status quo right now, and they have lost respect for the people who they are representing. How do you get that respect back?
I think the way that you do is you put in candidates that are for limited government. You know, the Republican Party says certain things that they stand for, and then yet in the national and the state, you see them voting for things that are contrary to that. You know, we talk about limited government, but all we have is talk. And, you know, I'm more of a man of action, and I believe that there are certain things that should be done. We should, they've talked too much about eliminating property tax. Let's just do it. Forget the talk. Let's go to action. You know, when Ronald Reagan, and I'm a big Ronald Reagan fan, you know, I think he's a model of a true Republican, true conservative Republican. And if we could, you know, through action, demonstrate to the people that this is where we stand. And unfortunately, we have too many Republicans. They get in there and then they back down, and then they're mollified and made part of the system.
Ronald Reagan was also the guy that said, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. and we know how that's worked out so far. You know, let me follow up just very quickly before I come to you, Kristin. Mm-hmm. Limited government. How much government should we have in our lives? How much interference from those that we represent who kind of morph into that central government kind of system? How much government is too much government in our lives? How do you define it?
What we have now is too much government. It's been said, he that governs least governs best. We have a government that on the national level is spying on the people, and we have the Republicans, rather than bringing up that as an issue in Congress, they're bringing up Benghazi, which I believe is another tragedy. But the fact that down at Fort Meade, just across the Maryland line, they're probably reading all your texts, all your emails. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, you know, there is an issue right there that our Republicans could come out and say, look, this is an issue everybody gets. The government shouldn't be spying on you. The government shouldn't be telling you where to send your children. It's your decision, your choice. You know, I think that needs to change.
And Kristin, thank you for your patience. I'm going to have you answer the same question.
You know, look, there's absolutely no doubt that less is more. Government needs to. I think it may have been Ronald Reagan who said, you know, if it's in the yellow pages, the government shouldn't be involved in that business, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, less is more. Government's job is to create a framework that allows the individual and businesses to thrive and do what it is they do best. You know, essentially, government needs to be of the people, by the people, for the people. And we can never, ever lose sight of that. You know, do we need to empower people through property tax elimination? Absolutely. It's one half of the equation. You know, I am very proud to say that, you know, I have been endorsed by Citizens Against Higher Taxes, and they recognize the work that I have done in being a trusted and effective advocate for the hardworking taxpayers in my school district. You know, they even went on to say that they wish every school director had the same kind of record I have. And, you know, Senator Wagner, in his last mailer, said basically, you know, what I've been saying as well, that, you know, we need to eliminate the school property tax, but we also have to eliminate the root causes of what are causing school district spending problems. So, you know, when we reduce the financial burdens on families, when we, you know, start to break up the over-regulation of people and businesses, then we will be on the right path.
Let's talk about the property tax. We had two bills passed last year in the House. One, Act 76. The other one was Act 1189, or House Bill 1189, House Bill 76. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're in support of 76 here. Kristin, we'll start with you on this one, and then Ernie will follow up with that.
I am in support of House Bill 76. I do believe that it is the proper mechanism, legislative mechanism, to eliminate the burden of the school property tax.
What would you replace that with?
Well, I would replace it, as stated in House Bill 76, with a combination of an income tax and an expanded sales tax. So, you know, it needs to be done. I understand it didn't make it through the House. You know, 1189, I appreciated the efforts. some of our officials in trying to bring some relief to our taxpayers. And as a school board director, I appreciated that they attempted to, let us work, let us implement what works best in our school district. And we've been working very hard in Dallastown to work with our local municipal entities to bring economic development to the area through LERTA designations and, because we understand that businesses help build our economic base, and that benefits our school district. But I really do believe that House Bill 76 is what will do the trick.
Ernie, your thoughts about House Bill 76 or 1189?
First, 1189, basically that was a poison pill, I believe, it was a political move designed to kill House Bill 76. It went nowhere after it was passed. They wouldn't even allow, and this is a problem we're facing with career politicians in Harrisburg. They basically, conservative Republicans tried to get House Bill 76 attached to 1189 so it could get to the floor for a vote. That was shot down. Even Ron Miller, who said he supported House Bill 76, he changed his vote against it. And, we have a problem when we have politicians that just want to appear like they're doing something without actually doing something. House Bill 76, I am a strong supporter of it. It's being pushed by the Pennsylvania Taxpayer Cyber Coalition, a group of 83 pro-taxpayer groups statewide. They've endorsed me for this election. And it basically would increase the sales tax by 1%, the income tax by about 1%. And it's something that we can do right now. I know there's a number of problems, but here's one it's a slam dunk. It should be done. Now that Scott Wagner's in the Senate, they have 26 votes, it's looking like, as long as they can get it out of committee. But then that's where, do they have enough votes to get out of committee?
Nothing makes me sicker than hearing, and I have a lot of people who call in and say the same thing, and hearing government, be it federal or state, come out and say, we need to get back to getting Americans or Pennsylvanians back to work. We need to get them a job. Last I checked, I don't think government, unless we're talking about federal government jobs, gets jobs for people. What would you do to make the job, the job feeling here in Pennsylvania better? Ernie, I'll start with you.
There are several things you could do. Government can create the framework. And right now when Pennsylvania has some of the highest, I believe the highest corporate income tax rates in the free world, right there, that's a mistake. House Bill 76, part of that would actually eliminate the property tax for businesses. So if someone has a business and he or she's business is paying $50,000 a year in property taxes, just imagine the amount of money, they'll have that much, and they can invest in jobs. I think, when we look at they want to create these tax-free zones. Well, let's make the whole state a tax-free zone. And we can say to people in Maryland, hey, come back up here. We can say to people in New Jersey and all states surrounding us, why the reason business people are going to other states is because Pennsylvania is not competitive. And just starting there with those two things, just eliminate it, the corporate income tax, and eliminate the property tax, you would see our economy turn around in 2 years flat.
And we're seeing that right now in places like Florida and Texas, where people are going regularly, where there is no corporate income tax. Kristin, how do you make a better climate here for jobs to be created by the private sector here in the state of Pennsylvania?
There's absolutely no doubt. We do have the highest corporate net income tax. We need to resolve that. I agree. House Bill 76 will put tax money that's being paid now back into the pockets of businesses to invest in the community. But I also think, Wall Street Journal article, I believe it was last week, said that, where are we seeing the most startups in business? And it was really interesting. They track it more closely to having less regulation on those businesses. So it's not just a tax issue. It's an over-regulation issue. And my idea of establishing an office of the repealer would work toward, pulling back those regulations and then work on the tax side of it. So it's a combination of reducing taxes and reducing regulation, and that's what's going to make Pennsylvania work again.
I don't know if you two saw it the other week, but over $1 trillion needed each year for businesses to take care of their regulation costs here in the United States. And they said if you took that out and put it as a GDP, it'd be the 10th highest GDP in the world. When we come back, I want to ask the two of you to kind of close out here a little bit with some of the things maybe we haven't talked about and some of the things you're concerned about that would help make Pennsylvania, and specifically if you were elected, the 93rd Legislative District better here within the state of Pennsylvania. We'll ask Kristin Phillips-Hill and also Ernie Merisotis that question when we come back here on the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. We're with Kristin Phillips-Hill and also Ernie Merisotis, who are running for the 93rd legislative seat, the Republican nomination next Tuesday. And hope, again, no matter where you are, that you get out and vote. You got to be registered Republican or Democrat, obviously. So we didn't get to all the things. We never do. But, Kristin, I'm going to get about a minute and a half here, and I'd like you to... maybe even about a minute. Actually, we're running a little short on time. About a minute. Anything that we didn't touch on here, or something generally you'd like people to know about you that we really haven't touched on at all today?
Well, I think that I would like the people to know that I will be working for the people of the 93rd District. I have not signed a pledge to any outside organization. My only pledge is to the people of the 93rd. I believe in pension reform. I think we need to fix the pension liability. I believe that pension reform will start with me. I will not take a taxpayer-funded pension. I will limit my own term. I believe that we need to work to eliminate the prevailing wage. It is an onerous burden on local governmental entities and the taxpayers. We need to work to eliminate unfunded mandates. We need to have liquor privatization. This could be a laundry list, Gary. Mm-hmm. There are so many things in Harrisburg that need to be fixed. And there are some things that are near and dear to my heart that don't get a lot of play that, I was very excited to see the House working on encouraging organ donation yesterday. Something that is very, very near and dear to my heart.
And I'll have to jump over to Ernie on that one.
Okay.
Ernie, your final thoughts. About a minute.
Thank you, Gary. Well, just want to let people know, I'm a conservative Republican. I've run before. I'm tired of business as usual in Harrisburg. I believe that what our lawmakers are doing is illegal when the Constitution says that under Article 2, Section 8, that they are entitled to salary and mileage and nothing whatsoever. That's one reason that I've signed a pledge that I will not take the pension. I think, quite frankly, what they're doing is a violation of the law. I think we need to get back to a citizen legislature. We need to get back to where the people have true representation instead of these career politicians that drone on about all the wonderful things they've done while they're taking our freedom and our liberty and they're raising our taxes again and again. And I think it's time for a change, and that's why I'm running.
You both mentioned Ronald Reagan today, and I thank both of you for being here with us today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I think people out there did. Ronald Reagan said two great lines. Number one, the best social reform program in the world is a job. And he said this: there's no more striking symbol of democracy than the picture of a citizen casting a ballot, electing a leader, choosing his or her own destiny. We hope people will do that next week. We thank both of you for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tomorrow on the Gary Sutton Show, Chris Markowski starts us off at 9:05. So we'll look at some of the big numbers for the week. We've got some big ones coming out on Friday. Chris will analyze that, and we'll take your calls. All here on the Gary Sutton Show. Have a great day, everyone. It's high noon.